So you need to recall that today's lesson was about the point-slope form of a line. So point-slope form is called point-slope form because it has a point and it has a slope. So our formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Our slope is easy to identify because our slope is always the number here. It's m. So our slope is always m. So it's the number in front of the parentheses. Our point that we're given comes from y1 and x1. So our point is y1 and x1. So remember that a point is always in the form of xy. So you've got to pay very close attention to the fact that x goes here and y goes here, and you need to remember they always switch signs. They always switch signs. So if you're given a point and a slope, then remember that your point, your x value, is going to go over here in the parentheses for x1. Your y value is going to go on the left side where y1 is, and your slope, your m, is going to go here in front of x. So now we have a legitimate problem where we're supposed to pull out the point and the slope. So our slope's easy. Our slope is always the number in front of the parentheses, which in this case is negative 1/3. So our slope of our line is negative 1/3. Our point, remember, needs to be in the form of an ordered pair. It's an x and a y. And our x value from the point comes from this number that's in here in the parentheses with x. So for this problem, our x value is actually going to be a positive 5, because remember, it always switches signs from what's inside the parentheses to what is in the problem to what is actually in the ordered pair. So the same thing is true with our y value, that our y value is going to be the negative 3 because it's over here with y. And that means that our answer for our point is actually the point positive 3, because again, they always switch signs. So there's my slope and my point for this particular equation. So if I have the opposite this time, which I'm given my point and my slope, and I've got to plug my numbers into my formula. So my formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I know every time that I need to fill in numbers for y1, m, and x1. So we just got to figure out what those are. So let's start with our m, because m is always the easiest to identify. So my slope in this case is negative 3, which means that m is negative 3. So I'm going to replace that. My y value is, in my ordered pair, is positive 3, so that's going to go in here for y1. Remember that it always switches signs, so instead of being a positive 3, it's going to be a negative 3 in the equation. And then our x value in our ordered pair was negative 4, so that's going to go over here in place of x1. And again, it's going to switch signs, so currently it is negative 4, so in the problem it's actually going to be positive 4. So my equation in point-slope form is y minus 3 equals negative 3 times x plus 4. Sometimes they're going to give you a line, and they're going to ask you to identify the point-slope form of the line. So that means I still need a slope, and I need a point. And I'm still putting it in the form of y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm going to write this with my blanks wherever I'm going to need those. So I need a blank for y1, a blank for m, and a blank for x1. So from my graph, you can see that there is a point here on the line. And this particular point is the ordered pair negative 3, positive 3. So that's given me two things. First of all, it's given me my x value of negative 3, so I can go ahead and replace x with -3, but I know that I always switch my sign, so it's a +3. It's also given me a y value of +3. So I can go ahead and fill that in. But remember, in the equation, it's going to be the opposite, so it's going to be -3. To find my slope, I actually have to rise and run, which means I need another point on my line. So if I follow along my line, I'm looking for good, clean points. Well, clearly I have one here. There's a couple other points we could pick. There's a point here. There's a point here. And there's a point here. It's not going to matter which 2 points you pick. You're going to end up with the exact same slope no matter what. So I'm going to choose this point and this point. To find my slope, I simply have to rise and run. And I've got to figure out what my rise and my run are. So from here, this is a step of 1, 2. So if I illustrate that with marker to help you guys out, that's step of 1, 2. And then it's a run of 1, 2, 3. So that tells me my slope is 2/3. So I can go ahead and fill that in down here, because I know that this is my m value. And lastly, sometimes they're going to give you 2 points and ask you to find the point slope form of the line. Well, first of all, we need to identify what these points are. So recall that this is normally written as f of x equals y. This is also written as f of x equals y. So that tells us a couple things. It tells us that our x value is -2 for this first point. And it tells us that our y value for our first point is +3. And then if we look at the other point, we can figure out the exact same thing. So we know, again, we're going to have an x and a y for this point. And whatever's in the parentheses here is going to be our x. So we know that x is 3. And then whatever is outside the parentheses, or on the other side, the equal side, is going to be our y. So in this case, our y is 13. So now that I have my points, I need to find my slope. Our slope formula is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So if I label my points, this will help me out. So I'm going to label them x1, y1, and x2, y2. And I'm just going to plug in my numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my fraction line and put my minus signs in there. And my job now is simply just to replace the appropriate numbers. So we decided that y2 was 13. So I'm going to put 13 first. And then we decided that y1 was 3. So I'm going to put -3 on top. And then we decided that x2 was +3. So I'm going to put 3 on bottom. And lastly, we decided that x1 was -2. So I'm also going to put -2 on bottom. Now notice I did go ahead and put a negative sign as well as that minus sign. I need both. So to find my slope, I'm just going to work out the problem. So 13 minus 3 on top gives me 10. Whenever I have this minus negative, that's the same thing as saying plus a positive. 3 plus 2 is 5, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. So I have now learned that my slope is 2. So to put this in point slope form, because that's what it asked for, was point slope form, I need to have 2 things. I need, first of all, a point, and I need a slope. Well, thankfully I already have one of those. I have my slope. Remember, point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And our job is to fill in something for y1, m, and x1. We've already decided that our slope is 2, so we can go ahead and put 2 in here for m, because we know that that's what our slope is. So now we have to figure out something for x1 and something for y1. Well, we were given originally 2 points. We were given the point -2, 3, and we were given the point 3, 13. It does not matter which point you choose, so I'm going to choose the point -2, 3 to help me figure out what x1 and y1 are. Well, I know that my y value here is +3, so that's what I'm going to put in place of y1, but I always switch signs, so it's really going to become -3. And I also know that my x value for this point is -2, so I'm going to put in place of -2, or in place of x2, I'm sorry, a +2, because again I switched my sign. So this is my point slope formula. If you decided to use the other point, that is perfectly fine as well. So again, we're going to write our point slope form, y, and our blank for y1, and then our blank for m, and our blank for x1. We already know that m is +2. We've established that. So this time I'm going to use the point 3, 13, and I'm going to plug in my numbers. So I know that my y value in this particular ordered pair is the number 13. So I'm going to replace y with -13, because remember it's y minus y1, so I've got to put the opposite sign, so there's going to be a -13 there. And my x value in this problem is +3. So in the blank over here, instead of x1, it's going to be a -3, because again I switched my signs. So my answer to this question is actually 2 different equations, and either one of these will work for point slope form.